The night was heavy with silence, the kind that blankets the world just before something unforgivable happens. A dim alley behind a row of shuttered shops stood cloaked in shadows, reeking of rot and discarded lives. The flickering light of a lone street lamp cast eerie reflections on the puddles below, its hum the only sound cutting through the stillness. A black luxury SUV was parked a few feet away, engine off, windows tinted. Inside, Zara Khan, a man known more by whispers than by face, sat alone in the driver's seat, his fingers curled loosely around the leather steering wheel, his expression unreadable. He had pulled over briefly to take a call, but now the phone lay forgotten on the passenger seat. His sharp eyes were fixed ahead, watching. From the darkness, a sleek silver car pulled into the alley, its engine purred like a predator. The door flung open and a woman stepped out, tall, poised, wearing an expensive blood-red coat that fluttered like a cape. Her stiletto heels clicked sharply on the concrete, echoing off the graffiti-covered walls. Her face, though beautiful, was a mask of cruelty. Kinza. She opened the trunk, revealing a horrifying sight. A heavily pregnant woman, unconscious, her face bruised, wrists bound. Nimra. Her once elegant dress was torn, soaked in dirt and blood. Kinza looked around, then, with startling ease, dragged Nimra out like she was nothing more than trash. A garbage truck rolled into the alley right on cue, its mechanical arms rising like the jaws of a beast. Kinza gave the driver a signal. A bribe had already sealed the deal. With one last look of disdain, she heaved Nimra's limp body onto the platform. The compactor roared. Zaryab's breath caught in his throat, his jaw clenched. He didn't know who these people were, not yet, but he knew one thing. He had just witnessed an attempted murder dot as the truck began to reverse out of the alley. Zaryab quietly started his engine. His eyes stayed locked on the disappearing vehicle. This night, he realized, was not the end of someone's story, it was the beginning of something much bigger. Sunlight streamed into the tastefully decorated bedroom, catching on the soft white curtains as they fluttered in the breeze. Nimra stood at the mirror, adjusting her dupatta, gently brushing her hand over her growing belly. At 7 months pregnant, she glowed with the kind of joy that only comes from believing you are deeply loved and deeply safe. Her reflection smiled back at her, eyes hopeful, full of dreams, full of trust. She walked downstairs, her steps careful, one hand always on her belly, the other trailing along the railing of their lavish home, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, imported furniture. Everything was perfect, just like her marriage. Or so she thought. Ramez, her husband of 5 years, was a successful entrepreneur. With a disarming smile and the charm of a practiced liar, he had built not only a business empire but also the illusion of a devoted husband. He had been her college sweetheart, ambitious, attentive, a man who always made her feel like she was the center of his universe. Even now, he kissed her forehead every morning, whispered sweet nothings into her ear, and spoke to her belly as if their unborn daughter could hear him. But behind the smiles and the breakfast in bed, behind the designer nursery and the baby shower plans, lay a secret so vile it would tear Nimra's world apart. Kinza, his assistant, was the poison seeping quietly into their lives. At the office, Ramez was no longer the family man. With Kinza, he was different, reckless, flirtatious, unashamed. Kinza had been hired 2 years ago, efficient and ambitious, but what she wanted wasn't just professional success. She wanted Ramez. She wanted his name, his wealth, his world. And more than anything, she wanted Nimra gone. She knew which buttons to press, showing Ramez fake messages, twisting Nimra's words, playing the victim when she accidentally overheard a conversation. Slowly, she spun a web of lies. Nimra was insecure, unstable, even unfaithful. Ramez began to pull away, subtly at first. Cancelled dates, missed doctor appointments, sudden business trips that lasted longer than expected. Nimra noticed the change, but brushed it aside. He's just stress. It's the pregnancy. He still loves me. The idea that Ramez could betray her at a time like this seemed impossible. She couldn't see what was happening behind the scenes. Kinza was patient. She started wearing more revealing clothes at the office. She laughed a little louder at his jokes, touched his arm a little longer than necessary. Her trap was working. Ramez had always been a man who loved to be worshipped, and Kinza knew just how to make him feel like a god. While Nimra waited at home with a candlelit dinner and baby name ideas, Ramez was tangled in sheets with Kinza in a hotel suite across town. He didn't answer Nimra's calls, and Kinza, lying on his chest afterward, whispered, "She's holding you back. You deserve better." That night marked a shift. Ramez stopped pretending at home. His smile grew colder. He started snapping at Nimra for little things. The warmth faded. The kisses vanished. And still she tried baking his favorite dishes, planning movie nights, reading parenting books aloud to him, but none of it mattered. The truth was, Ramez had already made his choice. He just hadn't told Nimra yet. And Kinza? She was already plotting the next step, removing Nimra from the picture permanently. Kinza's beauty was the kind that drew attention the moment she entered a room. Striking eyes, confident smile, every gesture calculated to command admiration. But beneath the surface was a darkness that fed on jealousy, competition, and the obsessive need to win. And right now, her target was Nimra, the woman who had everything Kinza believed should have been hers. She played her role carefully. She didn't rush. Instead, she began by playing the concerned colleague, subtly voicing her worries about Nimra to Ramez. "Ramez, don't take this the wrong way," she'd say sweetly during lunch meetings. "But are you sure? Nimra's okay. I saw her Instagram post yesterday. She looked unwell, depressed, maybe even unstable. You should be careful. Pregnancy can mess with a woman's mind." It started as small comments. Then came the planted evidence. She forged messages on a spare phone, making it appear as though Nimra was secretly texting an ex. She left Ramez's old photos with female friends in places Nimra would find, triggering misunderstandings. She exaggerated innocent things Nimra said or did, twisting them into warnings. She was pacing the office parking lot last week, alone, talking to herself. Kinza whispered dramatically, "Are you sure she's fit to raise a child?" And Ramez, selfish, weak-willed, and increasingly caught up in Kinza's spell, began to believe it. He started questioning everything Nimra said. Every smile became suspicious, every request an annoyance. He refused to touch her belly anymore, began sleeping in the guest room, and spoke to her with a kind of coldness that made her question her sanity. "You forgot my meeting again?" He snapped one evening when in reality he'd never told her. "You can't even take care of yourself. How will you take care of our child?" Nimra, confused and hurt, began apologizing constantly. She started second-guessing herself, crying alone in the bathroom, blaming the pregnancy hormones for his distance. But in truth, Ramez's heart had already been hijacked by Kinza's manipulation. Kinza, emboldened, began spending more time at the house. She'd drop by to deliver Ramez's files, but linger for hours. She started rearranging things in the kitchen, commenting on the nursery design, and even suggesting baby names, as though she were already part of the family. When Nimra objected, Ramez accused her of being paranoid and overly emotional. "Kinza is just helping. Stop making a scene." He snapped Dot behind Nimra's back. Kinza smirked, inch by inch. She was replacing her. The psychological abuse deepened. Ramez stopped accompanying Nimra to doctor appointments. He ignored her when she cried at night, dismissing her pain as attention-seeking. And Nimra, trapped between hope and heartbreak, still held on to the illusion that things would get better. But Kinza wasn't done yet. The mistress didn't just want Nimra out of the house. She wanted her erased from existence. The house that once echoed with laughter and love had turned into a gilded prison dot. It began subtly. One morning, as Nimra reached for her phone to call her mother, Ramiz snatched it away. "You need rest," he said curtly. "Too much screen time isn't good for the baby. I'll keep this for a few days." Confused, Nimra protested gently, but Ramiz silenced her with a glare she'd never seen before. That was the first log. Over the next few days, more freedoms vanished. The driver was dismissed without explanation. The staff was told not to disturb Madam, and were now reporting directly to Kinza. The front gate was locked from the outside, and her house keys mysteriously disappeared. When Nimra questioned these changes, Ramiz spun the same narrative again and again. "It's for your safety. You've been too emotional lately. I can't risk you hurting yourself or the baby." At first, Nimra thought he was just being overly cautious, an overprotective husband. But the pattern became clear quickly. She wasn't being protected. She was being imprisoned. Kinza, ever present now, began walking through the house like she owned it. She redecorated the guest room into her personal space. She cooked Ramez's favorite meals in Nimra's kitchen, served them at Nimra's dining table, and laughed at his jokes like a wife, not a guest. Nimra, meanwhile, was mostly confined to the upstairs bedroom, her bedroom, which began to feel more and more like a cage. Her clothes were suddenly misplaced, replaced with dull, oversized nightgowns. Her skincare items were thrown out under the pretext of being unsafe during pregnancy. Even her mirror was removed. "I'm doing this for you," Ramiz insisted coldly. "You're not thinking straight. Kinza's helping me take care of things until you're better." Gaslighting became a daily ritual. When Nimra said she felt weak, Ramiz told her she was imagining it. When she cried, he said she was unstable. When she begged for her phone, he said she had tried to harm herself, a lie Kinza backed up with mock concern and a fake diary entry she claimed to find. In Nimra's drawer, Nimra's world shrank to 4 walls and silence. The only sounds she heard now were footsteps outside her door, the low hum of whispered conversations between Ramiz and Kinza, and the sting of betrayal echoing in her head. One night, through a crack in the door, she saw them, Ramiz and Kinza, tangled on the living room couch, lips locked, bodies pressed close. Kinza looked up, saw her, and smiled smugly. She didn't even try to hide it. It was no longer just a matter of jealousy. Kinza had taken her place, not just in the home, but in Ramiz's heart, and in his bed. And Nimra? She had become the ghost of her own life, trapped, powerless, and utterly alone. Kinza had waited long enough. She had played her part to perfection, sweet, supportive, concerned. Now it was time for the final act. "She's ruining your life?" "Ramiz," she said one evening, her voice low and venomous as she sat beside him on the balcony. The moonlight shimmered against her satin robe, her fingers casually stirring a glass of wine. "How long will you keep pretending she's going to get better? You know she won't." Ramiz didn't respond. His eyes were hollow, face drawn with weeks of confusion and manipulated guilt. Kinza leaned in closer. "She's unstable, dangerous even. What if she hurts herself, or the baby, or you?" she whispered. "You've already done everything you can. She's just a weight around your neck." Her hand slid over his. "Let me help you." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a demand dressed as concern. Over the next few days, Kinza laid out the plan like a carefully prepared business strategy. She told the house staff Nimra was being transferred to a private care facility, part of her treatment. They were given hush money and sent on an extended leave. The house emptied. Ramiz hesitated once, just once, but Kinza quickly extinguished his guilt. "You'll thank me when it's over," she said, brushing his hair back. "This is mercy. She's already gone, Ramiz. What you're doing is setting yourself free." That night, Kinza prepared the injection, a powerful sedative, enough to knock Nimra out for hours. Nimra barely had the strength to fight when Kinza entered her room under the pretense of giving her medicine. "For the baby," she said with a smile. Nimra's eyes fluttered weakly. She tried to protest, but the moment the needle pierced her skin, darkness pulled her under. They dressed her in torn rags, old clothes Kinza had shredded and soaked in filth to make her look homeless, mad, unrecognizable. They tied her wrists loosely with rope, smeared dirt on her face, and covered her in a thin shawl dot. At midnight, they carried her to the car. Her limp body nestled in the trunk like unwanted cargo. The city was asleep. The streets were empty. The alley was chosen carefully, a quiet place where garbage trucks made unscheduled pickups. A favor had already been bought with cash and threats. No questions asked out, the truck pulled in on time. Kinza got out first, heels clicking on the concrete as if this were just another business deal. Ramiz followed silently, his face pale but his eyes set. Without a word, they dragged Nimra's body to the back of the truck. The driver barely glanced their way. He hit the button. The mechanical groan of the compactor echoed through the alley like a monster waking up. Ramiz couldn't even look. Kinza, on the other hand, stared coldly as Nimra was lifted into the mouth of the machine. "She's gone," Kinza said flatly. "It's done." As the truck rolled away into the night, carrying Nimra like a piece of trash, Kinza wrapped her arms around Ramiz and whispered in his ear, "Now we're finally free." What they didn't know was that they weren't alone in that alley. A black SUV, parked in the shadows, held a silent witness to everything Dot and Nimra's story was far from over. The first thing Nimra felt was pain, dull, throbbing, radiating from every part of her body. Her throat burned, her limbs were weak, and her mind floated in a thick fog. For a moment, she couldn't remember who she was or where Dot. Then she heard a voice. "Don't move. You're safe now." It was deep, steady, calm, the voice of someone who wasn't afraid. Slowly, she opened her eyes. She wasn't in a hospital. The walls were painted in soft earth tones. A large window let in gentle sunlight. A fireplace crackled quietly in the corner. She was wrapped in clean white sheets, her belly still round with life, her wrists bandaged. Panic surged. She tried to sit up, but her body betrayed her. "Easy," the man said, stepping into view. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a calm intensity in his eyes. His beard was trimmed, his shirt sleeves rolled up. There was something distant about him, like he carried 1,000 stories behind his silence. "My name is Zara Khan, I found you in a garbage truck, unconscious, barely breathing." Nimra's lips parted, but no sound came. Her hand flew to her stomach. Zara nodded gently. "The baby's okay." The doctor checked. "You were sedated, not poisoned, just weak." And that's when it hit her, the last memory. RAMEEZ.KINZA. The injection, the cold, the darkness. The betrayal. Tears spilled from her, eyes hot and silent, soaking the pillow. She turned her face away, unable to bear the shame. Zaryab said nothing. He let her cry. Hours passed. When she could speak, her voice was hoarse. "They tried to kill me. I saw everything," Zaryab said. "I was there that night. I followed the truck. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Why would you save me?" She asked brokenly. Zaryab hesitated, then said quietly, because once I lost someone too. And I swore if I ever had the chance to stop it from happening again, I would. Nimra closed her eyes, the weight of everything crushing her. The man she loved, the child they created, and the woman who stole it all and almost ended her life. They left me for dead, she whispered. Then, slowly, she sat up straighter, fire flickering in her exhausted eyes. Now they'll know what it feels like. Zara met her gaze. There was strength there, buried beneath the pain. He saw it clearly. I can help you disappear, recover, gather proof. But it won't be easy. I don't want easy, Nimra said. I want justice. He nodded once. Then we start today. And from that moment on, the woman who had been thrown away like garbage was gone in her place. Something stronger was being born. The days that followed were unlike anything Nimra had ever known, a strange mix of healing and war preparation. Zara had taken her to a secure estate on the outskirts of the city, hidden behind high walls and guarded gates. There were no reporters, no cameras, no curious neighbors, just silence, safety, and purpose. It was the perfect place for someone the world believed was dead, and for Nimra, it was the perfect place to rise again. Zara provided everything, not just physical care, but tools, access, and most importantly, knowledge. You won't survive by fighting like them, he told her. You'll win by being smarter, quieter, sharper. Each morning, Nimra started her day with physical therapy. Her body, once weak and bruised, began to regain strength. In the afternoons, Zara introduced her to surveillance equipment, legal briefings, and digital forensics. His background in tech and philanthropy had given him powerful connections, lawyers, hackers, investigators, all loyal, all discreet, using her old email accounts and social media, secretly reactivated. Nimra began to dig, and what she found turned her grief into cold. Focused rage. Bank transactions in Ramiz's name, huge sums moved without her consent, property documents, forged signatures, voice recordings, abuse disguised as concern. Even her medical files had been tampered with, likely to prove she was unfit. Kinza had left no trail visible to the public, but Nimra, with Zariab's help, saw everything. They weren't just murderers. They were thieves, liars, and cowards. One day, Zariab handed her a small mirror. Do you want to keep looking like her? He asked. Nimra stared at her reflection. Pale skin, sunken cheeks, tear-streaked eyes. She shook her head. The transformation began. Her hair, once long and soft, was cut into a sleek, commanding style. She switched from traditional pastels to bolder tones, deep reds, structured blacks. Her walk straightened. Her shoulders squared. She wasn't just dressing different, she was becoming someone new. She took voice training to eliminate the weakness in her tone. She studied legal loopholes, observed media strategies, rehearsed every possible question she might face. Zariab was her mirror, her mentor, and her shield. Never intrusive, always present. He watched her quietly, proud but distant. One evening, while reviewing surveillance footage from a private investigator Zariab had hired, Nimra saw it, Ramiz and Kinza laughing on a yacht, sipping wine, celebrating her absence. Kinza wore a diamond bracelet that once belonged to Nimra. That night, Nimra stood on the estate balcony under a moonlit sky, her hands clenched on the railing. It's time, she said. I want them to see me before they fall. Zariab nodded. Then let's make sure they never forget it. They mapped out every step of the return, not just to confront, but to expose. Nimra would not appear broken. She would appear undeniable. The woman they discarded was no more. In her place stood a storm they never saw coming. The ballroom of the Sapphire Grand Hotel glittered like a dream, chandeliers raining crystal light, champagne glasses clinking, and cameras flashing at every turn. The crowd was elite, the air thick with perfume and ambition. It was Ramiz's biggest night yet, the official launch of his new luxury lifestyle brand, Aurum. And at the center of it all stood Kinza, now styled to perfection in a gold designer gown, her fingers adorned with rings that once belonged to Nimra. She moved like royalty, basking in attention, posing for photographers like she was born. For the spotlight, beside her, Ramiz wore his usual arrogant charm. He gave speeches, shook hands, smiled for interviews. To the outside world, he was the self-made man with a stunning new partner, a symbol of power, success, and control. No one knew was that their empire had been built on betrayal. As the evening peaked, a hush swept across the room. The MC took the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, to celebrate this new beginning, we present a very special tribute video, the story behind Aurum. Lights dimmed. A video played across a giant LED screen, brand visuals behind the scenes. Footage, Ramiz's voice narrating the struggles and sacrifices that led to this success. Then, static.a flicker. The screen glitched and changed. Gasps erupted. Footage rolled. Not of the brand, but of that alley, grainy yet clear. The unmistakable moment Ramiz and Kinza dragged a limp, unconscious Nimra and threw her into the back of a garbage truck. The angle shifted. It was clearly security footage, enhanced and time-stamped. There was no mistaking their faces. The room froze. Kinza's smile dropped. Her face turned pale. Ramiz's hand, holding a champagne glass, trembled. The glass slipped from his fingers and shattered. And then a single spotlight beamed down at the entrance of the hall. There she stood, a woman in red. Alive. Strong. Unshaken. Nimra. She walked in slowly, like time itself had paused for her return. Her red silk gown flowed behind her like a cape. Her hair was swept back, her makeup flawless. But it was her eyes that silenced the room, sharp, composed, and burning. With unspoken fire, someone whispered, "That's Nimra? She's supposed to be dead." Ramiz staggered backward. Kinza choked on her breath. No, this isn't possible." But Nimra kept walking, calm and poised, like the ghost of justice herself. As she reached the center of the room, she took the mic from the stunned MC. "Good evening," she said, voice clear and firm. "You all know this man as a visionary, a businessman, a loving partner." She paused, then smiled coldly. "But allow me to reintroduce him as a liar, a thief, and a murderer." Murmurs exploded around the room. Nimra turned to face the screen behind her. "That footage? That's real. That was me. 7 months pregnant, left to die." She looked straight at Ramiz. "You thought you erased me, but you only set the stage for my return." Security stepped forward. Police, already briefed by Zaryab's legal team, emerged from the back. Ramiz's face crumpled as officers cuffed him. Kinza tried to flee, but Zaryab stepped into the aisle, blocking her path. "Going somewhere?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Crowd erupted in disbelief, scandal, and awe. Nimra didn't flinch. She had returned from the ashes, not just to survive, but to burn everything built on her pain. The courtroom was packed. Media vans cluttered the outside parking lot, their satellite dishes aimed toward the sky. Headlines had already exploded across every news channel. Pregnant wife returns from the dead. Business tycoon faces murder charges. Inside, the air buzzed with tension. On one side, Nimra sat tall, draped in a simple but elegant white suit, a symbol of dignity reclaimed. Beside her, Zaryab, calm and composed, silently offered strength with his presence. On the other side of the aisle, Ramiz and Kinza sat behind their legal team, visibly shaken. Gone were the designer suits and smug expressions. Now they were just defendants, stripped of glamour, facing consequences, The judge, stern and experienced, reviewed the thick stack of evidence before him. Case number 726. State versus Ramiz Khan and Kinza Malik. Charges include attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, forgery, and domestic abuse. Plaintiff, Mrs. Nimra Ramiz Khan. The prosecutor began with a chilling summary outlining Nimra's confinement, the falsified medical records, and the murder attempt by garbage truck disposal. Whispers rippled through the gallery. Then came the first bombshell, the surveillance footage. All lights dimmed as the screen behind the judge lit up. There it was. Again, the alley, the car, the garbage truck. Ramiz dragging Nimra, Kinza standing cold and composed as the truck roared. The audience gasped. Some reporters dropped their pens. The footage ended on the image of the compactor rising, inches away from ending Nimra's life. Kinza buried her. Face in her hands, Ramiz looked away. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, this isn't just attempted murder. This was a carefully planned execution of a woman 7 months pregnant, the mother of his unborn child. Then came Zaryab. He stepped into the witness box, swearing in. I saw everything, he said calmly. I was in the SUV nearby. I followed the garbage truck, pulled her out before it was too late, and provided medical care and shelter. I had no relation to her. I just couldn't watch a woman be thrown away like trash. His testimony was solid, emotional, and indisputable. He also provided recorded conversations between Ramiz and his corrupt financial advisor, proving massive fraud involving Nimra's personal assets. Then Nimra stood to speak. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. Your Honor, she began, I was kept prisoner in my own home. I was manipulated, drugged, gaslighted, and nearly killed by the man I trusted most. And the woman he brought into my life destroyed it. But I refused to stay silent. She turned to Ramiz and Kinza. You thought I was weak, disposable, replaceable, but I lived. And now you will answer for what you did. As the defense stuttered through a weak rebuttal, the courtroom doors burst open. An officer entered, holding documents. Your Honor, he said, handing them to the judge. We intercepted an illegal financial transfer this morning, a bribe intended for your office. From the defendant, Mr. Ramiz Khan. The judge's face darkened. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Ramiz leapt up, protesting, it wasn't me. She's framing me. I'm innocent. Enough. The judge thundered, banging his gavel. Sit down, Mr. Khan. Kinza began to scream. I didn't do anything. He made me. He said it was just to scare her. The judge turned to her slowly. You actively participated in a premeditated murder attempt. You will be held equally accountable. Silence fell. Justice was no longer a dream. It was being written, word by word, in front of everyone. And Nimra, once voiceless, had become its fiercest author. The final day of the trial arrived with an eerie stillness. The courtroom, once buzzing with anticipation and flashing cameras, now held a heavy silence, the kind that comes before a storm breaks or justice strikes. The judge entered, stern and unreadable. Ramiz and Kinza sat side by side, hands trembling, eyes hollow. Gone were the polished facades. They looked like shadows of the people they once pretended to be. And they sat in the front row, Zara beside her. Dressed in white again, this time, not for surrender, but for peace, she exuded quiet strength. Her hands rested on her lap, calm, composed. Unshaken. The judge cleared his throat and began reading the verdict. After reviewing the evidence, witness testimonies, and overwhelming proof of premeditated crimes against Mrs. Nimra Khan, this court finds Ramiz Ahmed Khan and Kinza Malik guilty of attempted murder, criminal conspiracy, financial fraud, and domestic abuse. A sharp breath echoed through the gallery. Both defendants are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Their assets will be frozen and further investigation will continue regarding fraudulent financial activities. Ramiz slumped in his seat as if the words had physically crushed him. Kinza screamed again, breaking down in a desperate fit of sobbing rage. No, I didn't mean to kill her. I just wanted her gone. But no one listened anymore. The courtroom guards stepped forward, locking handcuffs around their wrists. Kinza resisted, thrashing in panic. Ramiz remained eerily still. Defeated, broken dot, as they were escorted toward the exit, Nimra rose from her seat. She took a few steps forward, just enough for Ramiz and Kinza to see her one last time. Her gaze held no hate, only finality. Tried to throw me away, she said softly, like garbage. Like I didn't matter. But you underestimated the woman you tried to destroy. She took a breath. I became unbreakable. The silence that followed was more powerful than applause. The courtroom doors opened, and the two criminals were led into the darkness they'd created. Nimra turned to Zaryab, her eyes filled with tears, not of pain, but release. It was over. Justice had not just been served, it had been reclaimed. By the woman no one thought would survive. The soft cries of a newborn echoed through the quiet countryside estate, nestled between golden fields and gently swaying trees. Morning light filtered in through linen curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. Nimra lay on the bed, her face radiant with both exhaustion and indescribable peace. Her arms cradled the tiny bundle swaddled in pale pink. Her daughter, her miracle, alive, healthy, and full of life. She smiled down at the baby's delicate face, her heart swelling. For months, she had feared this day would never come, that she would never get to meet the life growing inside her. But here she was, holding the future in her arms. Zaryab stood nearby, silent, reverent. When Nimra looked up and nodded, he stepped forward. Carefully, she placed the baby into his arms. His eyes widened with wonder as he held her for the first time. The baby gripped his finger tightly, and he couldn't stop the quiet chuckle that escaped him. She's strong, he whispered. Just like her mother, Nimra replied, her voice soft but steady. They moved to the veranda, where the first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of rose and gold. The world outside was still and pure, a reflection of the life they had rebuilt, far from the noise, the pain, and the shadows of the past. Nimra leaned into Zaryab as he held the baby close. No longer haunted, no longer hunted, she had come out the other side, not just alive, but transformed. This was more than survival. This was her new beginning, a new life in her arms, a conscience, new love by her side, and a new legacy that would rise stronger than anything that had tried to destroy her.